It was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life. My son was graduating. The whole family was there, smiles and laughter everywhere. My husband, my son. Everything was perfect. Until he stood up, and in front of everyone, he dropped the bombshell that would tear our world apart. He was divorcing me. My name is Angela. I'm 50 years old. I'm a mother, a wife, or at least I was. And for most of my life I've done everything by the book. I stayed faithful. I stayed patient. I worked hard. I gave my family everything I had. Not just the roof over their heads or meals on the table, but my time, my energy, my heart. I was the woman who remembered birthdays, made Sunday dinners, folded the laundry just the way everyone liked it. I didn't ask for much in return. Just love, honesty, and respect. I had always thought we had a good life. A tech company husband, a good son, a nice home with a little garden I tended to on weekends. From the outside we looked like that picture-perfect family. You know the one. Smiling at barbecues, taking vacations, posing for Christmas cards. But behind closed doors, I started noticing the cracks. First, it was small things. The way my husband, Mark, would spend hours in his home office with the door shut. Or how dinner conversations slowly faded into silence, with our son buried in his phone and Mark glued to his laptop. I'd sit there, spoon halfway to my mouth, wondering when our house had become so quiet. Every morning followed a rhythm. I'd wake up before sunrise, pack lunches, get dressed, kiss my husband on the cheek. Even when he didn't look up from his screen, I'd head off to work at a small marketing agency. Nothing fancy. I wasn't a high flyer. I was just one of those dependable, underappreciated women holding everything together behind the scenes. The kind of person the office depended on, but never promoted. I put in long hours, juggled deadlines, handled late-night client calls. Then I'd come home to a family that barely noticed I'd left. Sometimes, I'd catch a glimpse of us in the hallway mirror. Me walking in with groceries, Mark walking out with his gym bag. No words exchanged. Just two people sharing a house but not a life. I tried to keep the spark alive. I'd suggest date nights, weekend getaways. I even bought new perfume once. Something bold, hoping he'd notice. He didn't. The only thing he seemed to notice was when the internet went out or when the thermostat wasn't set to his preference. His affection faded like a photograph left in the sun. Slowly, then all at once. And yet I stayed. I told myself it was just a season. That every marriage had dry spells. That we'd find our way back. I held on not just for me but for our son. I didn't want him growing up in a broken home. So I painted on smiles, went to PTA meetings, planned family dinners. Hoping, praying that if I just loved hard enough it would be enough. But love, I've learned, can't survive in silence. It can't grow where it isn't watered. The signs were all there. His late nights, the missed conversations, the way his eyes never lingered on mine anymore. But I ignored them. Because facing the truth meant admitting something I wasn't ready to accept. That the man I built my life with was slowly, deliberately, walking away from me. I just never imagined he'd make it official on the day our son graduated. The air in the auditorium was thick with celebration. Families cheering, flashes from cameras, the faint sound of a brass band echoing through the hall. But I wasn't hearing any of it. I was watching Mark. Not just with my eyes but with that part of a woman that knows when something is wrong. He sat stiffly beside me, legs crossed, hands clasped, not smiling, not clapping, just tense. Like he was waiting for something. Or dreading it. Then his phone buzzed. A quick vibration, barely noticeable in the chaos around us. But I noticed. I always did. He glanced at the screen and turned it face down. That's when the chill ran down my spine. I didn't recognize the number. It wasn't saved. Just a string of digits and a single preview. Are you sure you're going to go through with it today? Today. Go through with what? My stomach tightened. I tried to shake it off to stay focused on the stage, on our son. Our beautiful boy. walking across to receive his diploma. But the knot in my chest was growing tighter, my breaths coming shallower. Something wasn't right. I'd seen the signs, hadn't I? The late nights at the office that never added up. The sudden business trips with no clear agenda. The text messages he always deleted. The way he stopped touching me, like even brushing past me in the kitchen, was too much. There was a time he couldn't keep his hands off me. When we laughed over burnt pancakes, when he'd kiss me on the forehead for no reason at all. That version of him had vanished, replaced by a man who barely made eye contact, who left the house before sunrise and returned after I was asleep. I tried confronting him once, just once. "Are you seeing someone else?" I had asked quietly, not with anger, just fear. He didn't deny it. He didn't confirm it either. He just stared at me like I had spoken a language he didn't understand, then walked out of the room. That silence said everything. Even the intimacy had died. Months went by with nothing more than a peck on the cheek or a distracted hug. I'd lie in bed next to him, listening to him breathe, trying not to cry. He used to wrap his arm around me in his sleep. Now he faced the wall. And the calls. God, the calls. I'd ring him just to hear his voice. Half the time he wouldn't pick up. When he did, it was always rushed, like I was bothering him. "I'm busy," he'd say. "Can we talk later?" But later never came. I had told myself I was being paranoid, that I was imagining things, that maybe I was just too sensitive, too needy. But that message, "Are you sure you're going to go through with it today?" That wasn't my imagination. He was planning something. And in my gut I knew it was going to happen here, today, while our son was graduating, while I was still trying to hold what was left of our family together. The crowd erupted into cheers as the final name was called. Flashbulbs popped, tassels were flipped, and families stood to applaud their graduates. I clapped too. Out of instinct more than joy. I was proud of our son. He had worked so hard. He deserved this moment. Then Mark stood up. First I thought he was just stretching. He was never one for big crowds or long ceremonies. But then he cleared his throat. Loudly. Intentionally. The kind of throat clear you do when you want everyone's attention. And he got it. People around us turned. Some students on the stage looked our way. Our son, still in his gown, glanced down from the podium, confused. And then Mark spoke. "I'm divorcing her. This is over." For a second I thought I had misheard him. That maybe the noise in the auditorium had jumbled his words. But no. He stood there, face tight and emotionless, and said it again. "I'm divorcing her. I've waited long enough." My heart stopped. The room went quiet. So quiet I could hear the buzz of the overhead lights. My hands froze mid-clap. My smile, plastered for the sake of our son's big day, dropped like a curtain. What? Divorce? Here. In front of everyone. This wasn't a private conversation in a therapist's office or a whispered confession in our living room. This was public execution. A statement. Spectacle. And he had chosen today, our son's graduation day, to do it. I felt every eye on me. Parents, students, teachers, strangers. Their glances were sharp, pitiful, confused. I wanted to disappear. Then, another vibration. Mark's phone, resting on the bench beside him, lit up again. This time the name was visible. Jessica. The screen blinked twice before he turned it over and slipped it into his pocket. Jessica. Who's Jessica? Why would he be texting her now? Why now? Right after dropping a bomb that had just shattered our family in front of everyone. A wave of nausea hit me. Suddenly I was back in our kitchen 6 months ago. I had asked him, carefully, almost timidly, about his late nights at work, his constant meetings, the smell of unfamiliar perfume on his shirts. He had dismissed it all. "You're being dramatic," he said. "It's just stress. You always overthink things." I remember standing there, holding a bowl of pasta I had made for dinner, the steam rising between us, as he brushed past me like I wasn't even there. But what if I wasn't overthinking? What if I had been right all along? What if there was someone else? I could feel the pieces falling into place now. The sudden coldness. The business trips that didn't quite make sense. The night he came home late and forgot to remove the lipstick stain from his collar. I had convinced myself it was from a napkin. Or maybe it wasn't lipstick at all. Maybe I just wanted it to not be lipstick. But Jessica was real. And now, here I was, sitting in a row of proud families, with my entire world unraveling one word at a time. I looked at my son. He stood frozen on the stage, eyes darting between his father and me. His lips moved slightly, like he was about to say something but couldn't find the words. I saw the confusion in his face, the heartbreak. This day was supposed to be about him. Instead, it had become the stage for Mark's exit. He had chosen this moment not just to leave me, but to humiliate me. To show the world, without shame or hesitation, that he had moved on. And possibly, with Jessica. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run out of that auditorium and never come back. But I didn't. Not yet. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. Well, this was just the beginning. My legs felt like they were made of cement. Heavy. Unmoving. But something inside me, something raw, wounded and powerful, forced me to rise. I stood, shaking. Not from fear, but from a fire I hadn't felt in years. Rage, betrayal, sorrow, all boiling under the surface, rising until they had nowhere to go but out. He looked at me, surprised. Maybe he expected me to cry. Maybe he thought I'd stay seated, silently broken. That I'd let him finish what he started with no resistance. But not today. Not here. I took a deep breath, my voice barely above a whisper, but sharp enough to cut glass. You think you've won, don't you? The murmurs in the crowd grew. Phones were raised now. This wasn't just a graduation ceremony anymore. It had become a live drama, and I was done being the quiet background character. He blinked, confused, as if my defiance didn't compute. I was about to expose everything, I said, locking eyes with him. You thought you had it all figured out. You thought you could humiliate me, then run off into the sunset with your Jessica. The name felt bitter on my tongue, but I said it clearly, loudly. His face dropped. Don't, he warned under his breath. But I didn't stop. No, I continued louder. You didn't think I knew about Jessica? About the texts, the late-night calls from hotel rooms, the receipts you left in your coat pocket. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Now I had their attention. His mouth opened slightly. Maybe to lie, maybe to defend himself, but I wasn't done. I played along. I smiled through it all. For our son. For appearances. But I'm not stupid, Mark. I've been recording our conversations for months. Every cruel word, every slip-up, every night you thought I was asleep while you whispered sweet nothings to someone else. His face turned pale. I have it all, I said, stepping forward now. On a drive. Backed up. Puppied. Dated. I watched his jaw tighten. Panic began to bloom behind his eyes like a storm cloud. Those nights you thought you were clever, deleting messages and changing passwords. I had already seen them. Saved them. He stepped toward me, voice lowered but frantic. Stop. Not here. Please. Oh, now you want privacy. I laughed, sharp and bitter. Where was that when you stood up in front of everyone and tried to destroy me? In front of our son. The crowd was silent. Some looked horrified. Some looked impressed. I didn't care. I wasn't doing this for them. I was doing this for me. All those nights I cried in the bathroom, biting my fist to muffle the sobs. All the dinners I ate alone. The mornings I woke up to an empty bed and excuses. This was my moment now. He raised his voice, trying to regain control. You're overreacting. I didn't flinch. No, Mark. I'm reacting. Finally. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small flash drive. Held it high. This holds every lie you've told. Every moment you made me feel crazy. Every insult, every cold shoulder, every whisper you thought I didn't hear. He lunged toward me as if to snatch it, but I was faster. I've already emailed it to myself. To my lawyer. To your boss. More gasp. Now he was the one shaking. You think you're in control, but you're not, I said, my voice low and steady. You had your moment of power. Now it's mine. And with that I turned. I didn't need to stay and watch him crumble. I had already won. As I walked out of that auditorium, head high, shoulders back, I felt a strange mixture of grief and satisfaction. Grief for the woman I used to be. Satisfaction for the woman I had become. I could hear him calling my name behind me. Desperate. Angry. Scared. But I didn't turn back. Not this time. I didn't rush as I walked. I let the moment breathe. The hush of the crowd buzzed behind me like static, everyone unsure if the show was over or if the next act was about to begin. It wasn't over. I stopped halfway down the aisle and turned around. Calm, deliberate. My fingers moved with practiced ease as I pulled out my phone, tapped a folder labeled, just in case, and cast the audio to the auditorium's Bluetooth system. His voice filled the room. Crystal clear. His words, soaked in arrogance and secrecy, echoed through the hall. Look, Jessica, she'll never find out. I've got her fooled. She still thinks I'm working overtime. I'm just biding my time. After the graduation, I'll leave her. She'll crumble and we'll be free. Collective gasp. Even the air felt like it had stopped moving. I watched him freeze, mouth open. His eyes scanned the room, desperate to undo what had just been done. He looked so small, so exposed. And me. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Power. For the first time in forever, I wasn't the one begging. I wasn't the one waiting up, worrying, crying behind closed doors. I was standing. Unapologetic. I walked back up to the podium, not for him but for myself. For every woman who'd been betrayed and told to stay quiet. For every person told to be the bigger person. He tried to speak, but I raised my hand. No, I said, my voice steady. Not today. He opened his mouth again, but the crowd wasn't with him anymore. They were with me. And he could feel it. You wanted to destroy my family, I said. You thought you'd humiliate me, then waltz out of here with a newer model and a clean slate. Took a breath. But see, Mark, this time. You don't get to walk away clean. His face was beet red now, sweat beading at his temples. His suit, so polished just moments ago, suddenly looked too tight, like it was choking him. I gave you everything. My youth. My loyalty. My trust. And what did you give me? Gaslighting. A performance you couldn't even finish without crumbling. He finally cracked. Please, he said, voice shaking. Let's talk. Just. Not here. But it was too late. The whispers were loud now. My son had walked over to me, placed a firm hand on my shoulder. Support, not shame. Mark reached out to me like I was still his to control. I stepped back. You don't get to apologize now. You had your chance. Over and over. And you chose her. You chose lies. I turned to the crowd, then back to him. You thought today would be the end of me. But it's just the beginning. And with that I walked out, this time for good. The room had gone still, yet it buzzed with unspoken tension. Every eye in the auditorium was fixed on her. Not out of pity, not even curiosity, but something else. Recognition. As if they too had swallowed their truth for years. She didn't move right away. She simply stood there, motionless, except for the faint rise and fall of her chest. Her fingers, clenched moments before, slowly loosened by her side. The weight she had carried, unseen for so long, seemed to shift, slide off her shoulders like an old coat. Her eyes locked on him. Not pleading. Not searching. Just seeing him clearly, maybe for the first time in years. He looked smaller now. Not physically, but stripped. Exposed. His confidence unraveled by her calm. A muscle twitched in his jaw. He reached up to adjust his collar, tugged it like it was choking him. Sweat beaded along his hairline. His throat bobbing with a dry swallow. The room was warm, but it was shame that burned him. Her heels clicked softly as she took a single step forward, then another. Each step was slow, controlled. Her body moved with grace, her back straight, not out of pride but freedom. Her face was composed, her eyes focused, not on him anymore but inward, on herself. His mouth opened slightly, forming words he no longer had permission to speak. He reached for his phone, but his hands fumbled. The device slipped and clattered to the floor, drawing a few gasps from the audience. He bent to retrieve it, but by the time he straightened, she was already turning. Her movement was deliberate. There was no rush in her steps, only purpose. She walked past rows of stunned faces, some leaning in, others pulling back as if watching a sacred moment unfold. Her face betrayed no fear, no fury, just clarity. From behind he stood frozen. The man who once dictated her days now watched as she authored her own ending. Her shoulders relaxed with every step toward the door. Her breath slowed. Her hands steadied. She didn't glance back. Not once. Outside, sunlight broke through the clouds, falling across her face. It made the faint lines at the corners of her eyes shimmer, not with age but with experience. Her lips parted as she took in a deep breath. It was the kind of breath one takes after surfacing from deep underwater. The air tasted different. She didn't need applause. She didn't need validation. The silence inside her was enough. She kept walking down the steps across the courtyard. The world hadn't stopped spinning, but something inside her had realigned. A quiet sense of rightness unfurled in her chest. Not because he had been exposed, but because she had been released. The past didn't vanish, but it no longer defined her. And with every step forward, she wasn't running from pain. She was walking toward power.